What's good, New York? Post 90 Podcast, episode 137, fresh off of the Leagues Cup win over the Revs. If it sounds like we are in a tin can right now, we literally are. Welcome into the car. You can hear probably the road, the rain. We're completely soaked. Wanted to hop on and kind of give us like our immediate thoughts. Wanted to record at the stadium. Couldn't get back up to the press box. Couldn't record outside because it was literally pouring. So here we are in the car. First ever car episode. I think this is something that we've always wanted to do, but just never really figured out how to do it. And obviously we want to do it in the most safe manner. Obviously,
what you will probably see throughout the course of this trip, and I know we've talked about it on the podcast before, is missed exits. That's like a cold classic out of me. I have to admit it.
There's a few things guaranteed in life. Death, taxes, Nick Cushing tinkering, and Adam missing exits.
Yeah. So we have a good 24 miles before I have to do anything, while I'm also trying to think about the performances that we just witnessed on the field, the penalty shootout that we went to, and the Leagues Cup kind of as it stands, with us having a game against the Liga MX team Tigres coming up, I think 3 days from now, but 2 days from whenever you hear this. And we have a ton of, I think, post-game questions to share. We had an opportunity to chat with James Sands. We had an opportunity to chat with Cushing, and there was, I think, a lot of valuable information. But maybe we just kick it off by getting right into the analysis of what we saw at Gillette.
Yeah, I mean, at first, honestly, a little bit shaky on the squad. Probably a little bit fortunate to get the penalty call that we did. But I do think that set the tone for the game in terms of what we wanted to do. It gave us the confidence. Honestly, before that point, I was not super confident. I didn't want to share that because once you put that into the world, you can't take it back. But I was not very confident going into this game. It just seemed like one of those ones where on the road, just came off of a super difficult loss, obviously with 4-2 away. Then we get the shuffle of getting Freese back in. We're watching him in warm-ups, and he really did not seem that locked in warm-ups, and that was something that we kind of commented on, and we didn't know.
It seemed like throughout the warm-ups that because of the work that was being done, that Barraza, before the lineup had dropped, it seemed like Barraza was going to be the starter.
Right.
And that aligns with what we've heard from Barraza himself after games. And we can roll the clip, courtesy of the City Boys, of him answering the question about playing time related to the Leagues Cup. I believe it was after the Querétaro game. So we'll roll that now.
Has there been any talks with Nick Cushing about starting throughout Leagues Cup?
It was a conversation these past months. It was communicated to me that I was going to get the tournament, and so knowing that, I did everything to prepare for this, and I'm so happy that I got the start and I helped the guys get the 2 points. So happy, man.
So Barraza, he flat out says that he was told that he was given the tournament. Pretty clearly said that Cushing gave him the tournament, and that was something that he knew potentially for a couple of months, which is wild, but something for him to look forward to. And then obviously he has a really rough outing against Cincinnati. We haven't even had an opportunity to talk about that game, but just the collapse that occurred, and you have to think Freese being in there with the Iron Man that he's been for us would at least save one of those, right? So he gets yanked from the lineup tonight. We interview Cushing after the game. We bring up the fact that Barraza mentioned to the media that he was going to have the tournament, and Nick Cushing kind of goes and gives us this answer, so we'll run that now. Talking about the 3 changes that you made tonight, obviously Barraza in goal being swapped out for Freese was one of those, and I think earlier in the tournament Barraza had mentioned to the media that it sounded like you two may have had a conversation about him getting the tournament, and I was just wondering if you could speak to making the change to bring Freese into the lineup for tonight's game.
Yeah, no. Listen, I think in football is really ongoing. It's not as simple as you get this and you get that, and you can see in the way the game is today. Like I'm sure there's players on there that started the game that want to stay in for 90 minutes. Everybody wants to play, right? I think this year is very unique for us in the goalkeeping department because our goalkeeper has outperformed, and he is, in my opinion, the best goalkeeper in the league. So when you want to go into a game where you want to go, we had a huge desire to get to the round of 16 because my aim for this team is to continue to improve and progress. And last year we lost to Red Bull in the round of 32, right? We get to 16 now, so we've made one step forward. So I chose tonight to go with a team that I felt could execute the win in this game. Luis has been top in this tournament. I said, and I will continue to say, his attitude, his training intensity, his character, how he helps the team is excellent. And, you know, if we decide to rotate the goalkeepers, if Matt Fries has to come out, I have no problem with putting Luis Barraza in. He's a really valued member of our squad.
Awesome. Thank you. So Cushing says that. He says pretty much for the most part, like we saw with the other changes that were made, Ojeda coming in, Hannes falling back into the starting lineup, and then Fries kind of taking that role back from Barraza, that Cushing at this point is just looking to win games.
It was a little bit of coach speak in there, you know, not to say that he scapegoated and got out of the situation, but look, at the end of the day, he's not going to go on there and say, you know, Barraza gave up 4 goals that I think that Matt Fries saves. But I think at the end of the day, that is what happened. I think you look at that game, and clearly he mentions the goal was to get to the round of 16. He felt that this team, specifically Matt Fries, gives him the best chance to do that. And so he made the change that was necessary. I can't imagine that it was an easy conversation if it was one that happened before kickoff. And I almost don't know that you tell Barraza until after the game and kind of just put that fire out later and say, you know, we went with whatever we thought was the best in the moment. It wasn't you. You'll get another opportunity another day.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that maybe Cushing had the conversation with him, but it might have just been a situation where the team sheet drops and the players find out who's going to be in what roles, you know, whether that's a day before the game or the day of the game. And that's kind of how you find out. And I feel like Barraza has always been pretty professional regardless. Even in warm-ups, you know, talking about him looking more like he was the one for at least the first half of it. But once Fries was kind of going and taking a lot of those reps too, like he was very supportive. And that's something we've seen a ton in our goalkeeper room. So we're lucky, you know, to kind of have that, and that there's not any kind of like turmoil amongst the keepers, because that, you know, would have definitely a negative effect, especially in the games that we're now playing where keepers are having to face penalties pretty often, twice in our last 2 games now, where it becomes such a mental load that you don't need other things kind of off the field taking away from it. So I guess credit to Barraza in that way. He was probably looking forward to this for a while, it sounded like. He kind of took it on the chin. It ends up working out for the team anyways.
Yeah, and you got to imagine at this point that, you know, if you are not the guy that is going to be trusted to get us to the round of 16, you're probably not the guy to help us advance to the next round either. So you probably look at this as saying Barraza's League Cup is over at this point. The experiment of him kind of being the guy for it is over. And Matt Fries goes back to being, you know, the pillar of the defense, the pillar of this team between the sticks. Obviously, he mentioned post-game that he would have liked to have a save. I personally think if that was put on target, that he does save it. But obviously, it ends up coming out. I mean, the game in general wasn't a whole lot to talk about. I think defensively, we did look a little bit leaky, despite being able to kind of keep these balls out of the net. There was specifically the moment, you know, balls played across the 18-yard box and is ultimately skied in the way that I would sky a ball maybe when we play soccer. And then there's obviously the Bobby goal, which was a screamer but called offside. There's a few moments where we looked a little bit shaky.
I mean, and then there was the actual Bobby goal.
Which to me was a handball, but...
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be talked about in the way of, I think, the refereeing tonight. Definitely in both sides. I think at one moment when we were watching the game, you said it felt like not only the announcing, but the referee was kind of going in our favor. A little bit more than the Revs. And Caleb Porter, we don't have any audio to share from it, but in the press conference afterwards, before Cushing came in, essentially just like teared the referees apart. I don't know how he makes it the next few days without getting fined probably, but he was really upset with the decision for us to get our penalty, and then if we get our penalty there, for them not to get it when Ojeda's hand hit the ball in the box for them. I think we kind of saw it both ways. It could have been awarded a pen, it could have not. But at the end of the
draw.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we kind of did squeak our way to the penalty. So I don't know if it's uncharacteristically, but we had obviously to go to the 7th round, and we see a few players that haven't really been put in positions where they needed to do things like they did in this game. So we have Hack obviously in the 7th round come in and seal this thing after the Revs missed their penalty. We have Sands, who has only scored a goal in his entire career, come in and score what you could call a screamer. We were up in the press booth, and you're like, he's just gonna hit the shit out of this ball.
Yeah.
Like he's just gonna blast it, and that's exactly what he does. He places it perfectly. So the penalties were the most important part of obviously the most important part of the game, right? But the most entertaining, because I think otherwise we had our gripes with some of the players on the field. Specifically like a McFarland earlier in that first half. Keaton certainly to the point where he had to be taken out for Hack, which was a good move from Cushing.
Yeah, and there was just some unsettled players.
Yeah.
But we weren't without chances. We did create some chances. There's obviously Santi pings one off the bar. We have Alonso come in, take down the ball beautifully, perfect touch. Unfortunately takes maybe one too many. In the end, doesn't get the goal. There's moments in the end too where we're playing beautiful, triangles here and there, really just kind of highlighting the way that the team wants to play. But at the end of the day, like you said, it comes down to the penalties. And Caleb Porter called it a flip of the coin. Obviously, he was at the end of a different defeat to New York, maybe a little bit more memorable.
Right, yeah.
But as Nick said, it doesn't really necessarily fill them with confidence. This was something that happened 3 years ago. This is a new team, his team now, and we convert in a very different way, but ultimately get the job done.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. It wasn't necessarily what I expected on our way to the stadium today. I thought we really had it in the bag, and they kind of made it a more difficult task than it really needed to be, especially considering the lineup that they fielded. It made the drive worth it, thankfully. I know we typically hate, like, we drive an hour or two and then we get there and the team doesn't show up or the ref screws us out of something. So successful trip for the boys here. I can confirm that we will not be at RBA for the Tigres game.
Absolutely
that
not.
Is totally, RBA is not something.
Unless they come up with we would need like a Hartford to RBA helicopter service. Then I'm 100% in.
Yeah.
Anything else out of that, I'm good.
Yeah.
Good.
So I think the last thing to talk about in the NYCFC world, before the game, we had a news story that is potentially bigger than the game itself dropped, in that the saga that is Thales Magno at the club has come to a pause for now. He leaves on loan to Corinthians, but at the same time they extend his contract through 2027. So it's possible we see a world where Thales is playing in our new stadium whenever it opens. But Corinthians has the option to buy Thales after the loan period, or they can extend the loan and they can also purchase him. In either case, it would be for 13.5, which is not far from the 15 that I think we were begging somebody to give us over the last year and a half, and nobody cared, based on kind of the way that Thales performed, and in some ways the way that we mismanaged him as a player, trying to force him, what do they say, a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
It just wasn't something that was going to happen. So he takes off, and now the depth on the left side of the field is a lot less deep than it was at the start of the season, when we had a Malachi, when we had a Thales, and now we've kind of just got Ojeda there.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say something profound when you said alas. Alas, Thales is gone. But no, to me, it just doesn't make a ton of sense for Thales to go on a loan. To me, it's either you sell him or you use him at home. There's no point in paying somebody. I don't know what the split ends up being, but I'm assuming we're not paying $0 for him to play somewhere else. I'm assuming there's some of that money is being taken care of by us. To me, if you're going to pay for somebody specifically of that quality, he has to play for us. Point blank period. We can't be in situations where we're paying dudes to play somewhere else, specifically in a position that is a need, is going to be something that's shuffled, if not weekly, every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. If the market isn't really there for him to be sold, then you keep him home and you play him and you let him grow.
And I think that's been the $1 million question of today, with the news dropping, is what amount, if any, are we paying to support him to play overseas for a club that's not us? And that also has implications related to the roster rules for the MLS. So I believe if Corinthians is covering a certain percentage of the salary, then we actually free up Tyler's DP spot. So if they're paying, enough that it allows us to get our DP spot back, then it is likely good business, because in that way we can at least use the DP spot for something else. I don't even think it's worth running the question and answer that we asked Cushing in the press conference after the game. I asked him to confirm whether or not he knew that Tales was being covered by Corinthians to a point where it would free up our DP spot, and he essentially hit us with the most press trade answer that you could get. I think
it's one of his pay grade.
One of his favorite lines of all time is, roster construction is an ongoing process. And I think we could go through all the press conferences since Nick Coach became the manager and run them all in a row, and you could just tell that is a staple of Nick Cushing's media training.
Yep.
And what he defaults to when you ask him a question that he's now willing to give information on. So he said he wasn't going to confirm or deny that our DP spot was open. So that still goes unknown to everybody, to the fans, to the media, that would otherwise like to know what position the club is in to make a move after they ship out who is, even to this day, the poster boy for the club. After he had been announced that he was leaving, was still the poster boy that the Leagues Cup and the MLS Cup tweeted of us playing the reps tonight. So it's not great that it's muddy, but that is kind of what it's been with NYCFC as long as we've all supported them.
Right. Yeah, but at the end of the day, we get the W, we move on. We get T-Race on Monday, I believe. Is that confirmed?
I think so. I know it's T-Race.
It should be on Monday. Whenever it is, we have T-Race.
It's on the 12th. I don't know what day of the week that
12th day is the Monday. Yep.
Yeah.
So we will see you guys after that. Apologies at this point. The road has gotten significantly worse. So you may not hear this portion of the audio.
Yeah.
Follow us anywhere that you can get a podcast. If you listen on Spotify or iTunes, those are the two best places. Outside of YouTube, you can come see our beautiful faces. Episode 137. We'll see you guys next week. And peace.
Hey guys, a little bonus content here at the end for those of you guys that always stick around. We forgot to tee up the James Sands interview that we got after the game. Justin had the opportunity just to ask him about what it was like to share the pitch with his brother for the first time. So, just going to run that now.
Obviously, you get the chance to play against your brother today. How did that feel? Were you kind of locked in, or did you kind of get some of those emotions going?
It was so special for both of us. I've faced him a couple times when he was on Columbus, but he never actually got on the pitch in those games. So this was cool, just to both be on the field at the same time, and we've both had very different but both cool journeys to get here. So it's nice to meet at the same place, and very cool for our family who is all out here today. So just a really special moment.
So that was Jimmy after the Leagues Cup game. Just wanted to say we appreciate you guys that always stick around to the end, watch to the end, listen to the end. More content, more episodes coming soon as always. So thank you and peace.